Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, my name is SITI HOTIMAH. I am from SMK Jakarta Timur 2. Now, I want to talk about my argument about this house belief that environmental movements should launch violent campaigns against major polluting companies. Ladies and gentlemen, first, the failure of non-violence and the need for escalation. Okay, traditional non-violent tactics have proven inadequate to halt massive ecological destruction, and therefore strategic violent action is a necessary last resort to confront this existential threat. And then positioning violent actions as a justifiable response of self-defense against the structural violence legally sanctioned by corporations that threaten human life and the continuity of ecosystems. Polluting companies count slow violence against communities and the environment. The violent response is a direct counter resistance to this aggression. And I think emergency brake is like only strategic violence or such as sabotaging vital infrastructure like pipelines, drilling rigs, heavy equipment can securely and immediately stop the pollution process. This is the emergency brake needed when the climate crisis reaches a critical point. Crushing economic impunity. It means attacking property destroys profit margins and causes significant financial losses, creating a far stronger economic disincentive than government fines. And for example, is like cases like the Earth Liberation Front or ELF, targeting property, not individual. Historical precedent for radical change. Radical social change often requires a radical social change, often requires a radical wing that makes the demands of moderate groups seem reasonable or uses unconventional tactics to forcibly shift public attention to the issue, creating pressure that political and corporate elites cannot ignore. The limit of violence here is property violence, not individual violence. The goal is inanimate assets used to kill the planet, not people. And then, the urgent need for immediate damage cessation is like asserting that the climate crisis and environmental damage are at a tipping point. Demanding are at a tipping point is like demanding the instantaneous cessation of polluting companies. Operation, for example, is like through infrastructure sabotage, which cannot be achieved through legal channels or peaceful protests. And ladies and gentlemen, I think for the next is destroying economic impunity. It means arguing that major polluting companies treat fines and protests as acceptable cost of doing business. Targeted, planned violent campaigns will effectively destroy their profit margins and infrastructure, creating an unavoidable economic disincentive. Redefining violence. It means establishing the boundary that the focus of violence should be on corporate property and assets. Ladies and gentlemen, for this example is like pipelines, machinery, and infrastructure. infrastructure rather than on individuals as a way to minimize human casualties while maximizing operational impact. And then we are facing global warming, air pollution, and plastic waste that will outlive all us. Every single day, millions of tons of CO2 are released, and big companies are responsible for most of it. We can solve an emergency with big actions. If someone is burning your house, you don't just politely ask them to stop, but you act. And that's what environmental movements must do. Strong and even violent campaigns can create shock value, something powerful enough to grab the world's attention. History has shown his pattern before, from the civil rights movement to women's suffrage. Sometimes only when people broke the rules did change finally happen. So, yes, extreme actions are justified when the world is facing extreme danger. Moral duty to protect the planet, I think, is like at the heart of this motion is a question of a morality. And next, what more violent, breaking a few corporate windows or letting the earth die slowly? What's more dangerous, disrupting profit or allowing our children to live? And ladies and gentlemen, that's all my argument. Thank you for you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.